level student. And most of the papers are, the first paper usually goes out when you are, say, first year doctoral student or second year doctoral student. So how I hope that you still find this interesting. And I would like to ask, like, how is that you would like me to handle this particular presentation and this particular subject matter? Would you like me to focus on more in the writing tips or more in the review tips? So what is that you're particularly looking for from this presentation? No comments.
It seems that your students already write chat, writing tips.
Okay. So where can I see the chat? Hold on. I need to figure it out how I can this, because it's very, very important me to be able to follow this discussion. And then I'm sorry, we will get started momentarily. Oh yeah, I know. I see now. I have a very different view. I see actually Suraj. All right, your camera being on all the time. And the next thing that I need to learn is about how are the comments. I know I see the comments. Okay, Suraj is looking for writing tips. What about the rest?
Students, what are you interested more in, writing tips or in what? Maybe they will have some comments after your presentation, because
Okay.
For now maybe they don't understand you in particular what you want to give them. So
okay. All right, so maybe we'll simply go through my presentation and then we will discuss. Okay.
Okay.
And Suraj, you can maybe, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Brahma.
Yes, so we are to start, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm ready to start.
Okay. So, dear students, I'm glad to represent our colleague from Finland, Professor Aki Mikkola, from Lappeenranta University of Technology, Professor of Virtual Design from Department of Mechanical Engineering, and other interesting thing about him, he is editor-in-chief at Journal of Multibody System Dynamics. So, and today he will give you a presentation about how to make a good presentation or a good publication for scientific journal. So, good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And as I mentioned before starting this lecture, I would like to have a good communication in the lecture. And I know that is very difficult for you. And it's difficult because, first of all, we communicate in English. And that already makes people to feel a little bit shy. And then another thing is that we are discussing about the subject matter that is very complicated and is very broad area. Because today we're discussing about publication business. And as I mentioned earlier, the publication, when I'm saying publication, I'm referring to journal publication. Why the journal publication is important in academic life, that I would like you to understand. And I know that because you are master level students, this may be a little bit premature, at least the some of the tips is no use for you at this time, but hopefully they will be useful to you a bit later. And if these tips are not good for you in terms of journal publication, you may use the very same concept when you're creating your master thesis. So I see really no significant differences when I'm comparing the publication, again, journal publication and master thesis. They are both following the certain procedure, and they both are, having the same kind of things that are making them either very successful or not so successful. So now I'm gonna put the recording on in my computer as well. So let me know if there's any kind of technical difficulties because of this recording. And I'm doing this recording because I see that I have just one of my students following this presentation, and I would like to force all my students to follow this. Why? Because for them, this is particularly important information that I would like them to learn. Okay, so here's the title of my presentation. So we are looking for steps for a good publication. And what follows is all kind of viewpoints and all kind of tips about this very broad subject matter. And then my lecture on next Thursday will be very different, because then I'm going to speak about computational dynamics, and I'm really going to speak about technical matters. So we're kind of getting started in at least in a certain perspective, we're getting started in a wrong way, because first we look how is that you can make a publication, and then later we're learning how is that the content of the publication can be. So I hope that you can still have an idea about the big picture. The big picture is that first publication, then technical information. And this presentation is something that I have put together by myself mostly. But there's somebody that I would like to acknowledge here in the very beginning. In my team, we have a very good writer. So he is a native speaker. His name is Scott Semken, and he's every now and then providing some good tips for the rest of us, how you can make a good high-level publication. And he's helping us to make a good level, high-quality research project proposals, and his editing skills are outstanding. So he's not correcting the grammar, but looking if the story is fluent and looking the ways that it's as easy to understand as possible, because it's all about the understanding. And if the reader cannot understand it, then usually it's not about that the subject matter is so difficult, but the way things are expressed are overly difficult. And that's something that is not very beneficial for you and is not beneficial for the reader. Okay, so with that, I would like to get started. And as you know, I would like to emphasize this communication. It goes such the way that you open your mic and you just say your comment, or alternatively, you can use this chat window. I need to move my window a little bit and to see what is that you're commenting to me, or what kind of message you would like to send to me. And now there's a first message that I have no idea what that is. And unfortunately, I'm unable to tell who is the one that emailed or put this message to chat window, because this is written in Russian. And my Russian is non-existent, so I cannot communicate in Russian. So Roman, can you help? What is this comment about?
Student said that was not good idea to left their English speaking courses in school, because now he is not enough to understand. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Of course, because geographically I'm very near to you. I'm what it is, Roman. It's less than 200 kilometers away from St. Petersburg. So I should be able to communicate in Russian, but I'm unable to do that. I'm sorry about that. And if there's anything you feel that is difficult, anything that I'm saying incorrectly or difficulty, just raise your hand and ask me to repeat it. Okay? Okay, so yes. I hear you. I was kind of hearing that there's a comment, but maybe I was wrong.
I just say, okay, you can continue.
Very nice. Okay, but this is the way we communicate. You can say whatever comment you want. You can say, okay, it sounds good, sounds reasonable, or it's not something that I buy, so you need to repeat it, or you need to make a better case. Okay, so today I'm going to speak about three matters. First of all, I would like to get started from the introduction. So the introduction is giving you a little bit of bigger picture about the academic life, how what are the things important in academia, and how is that you should handle these matters. And then something that I believe that is very beneficial to you is a preparation of a manuscript. And as I mentioned earlier, this is something that doesn't really matter what is that you put it in the writing. You can write a journal manuscript, or you can write a manuscript for your master thesis, or you can write a manuscript for a conference article. Really no difference. So, but because you are always forced to follow the certain steps and certain procedure. What is these steps? Or what are these steps? And what is this procedure that I would like you to learn during the course of my presentation? And then something that is very important if we are looking at journal publication, you need to know a little bit about how is a review process, because sometimes it comes with a little bit of surprise. And if you're aware of what to expect to see from the review process, it definitely helps your life. And what we can do is that I offer my service to you. So if you have a manuscript that you would like to hear my comments, I'm very, very happy to help you. So what you can do is that you can send me an email with your manuscript on that email, and I can take a look and I can give my professional opinion about how it reads and if there's anything that it makes sense to improve, because I'm handling a lot of manuscripts per year. And if you want to hear my personal and professional opinion, I'm very happy to offer that to you. So 3 matters: introduction, how to prepare the manuscript, and how is a review process itself. And what is that I would like you to learn? I would like you to learn my reasoning, because as mentioned, as Roman mentioned in the very beginning, I am serving as an editor-in-chief. So you would like to learn an editor-in-chief point of view. So what are the things we're looking at when when a manuscript comes to my plate? What are the things that I'm evaluating whether or not it should go to review process or not? But this is something that is a little bit of surprising, because often the case goes such that you're making a lot of work, you're preparing a high quality publication, you send that out to the journal, and it will be rejected within a day or 2. And you're like, what? How that is even possible? How is that they rejecting my high quality work with such a short period of time? And they do, because there are the few things that makes editor-in-chief to be very happy to see your manuscript, and certain things that makes it very unhappy to see. What are those things that I would like you to learn? Because it's sometimes a minor tuning you can do to make editor-in-chief to be happy. And you must make editor-in-chief to be happy, because if not, you will be rejected automatically from editor's desk. And that's very unfortunate. So as mentioned, so the tricks are the things that I would like you to learn. So a few things that you can tune your work to be in a better quality. And final thing is that I would like to share opinions. I would like to hear how you feel about this subject matter, and if there's something that you're thinking a little bit a different way than I'm doing my thinking. So those are really the objective. This is the reason to participate today's lecture. That's those 3 things. And saying that, sharing opinions, that's always a challenging. It's extremely, extremely challenging. And you have to understand that I'm teaching in Finland. And if you know something about Finnish people, then I'm sure you know that they are very shy people, and we do not speak. And I kind of feel that it may be a little bit of same thing about Russian students as well. And that's why I'm actually introducing means to communicate. So I would like to use something that is called in-class quizzes, which are questions that I'm asking from you. And I would like you to answer those questions. And you can answer those questions by installing a Socrative app to your mobile phone or your iPad, or whatever pad you're using. Or if you're just using your computer, you can use your browser to log into website that is www.socrative.com. And I have no questions active at the moment, but soon I will. So that's the kind of the reason that or one of the ways that I'm able to communicate with you. So if you don't speak to me, If you don't ask anything from me, I will do that for you then. So how that sounds? So do we have okay again, or are we still doing okay? So that do you agree that we can make some in-class quizzes?
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. All right. So, and I'm sure this may be the new story to you, but this is what I'm doing when I'm teaching. This will be valid also when I'm teaching the multi-body system dynamics and computational dynamics. In that particular field, you have to pay attention and you have to follow what I'm explaining to you, because I'm teaching something, and next thing that I'm doing is I'm asking, how it goes. Is this clear to you? And that the purpose of that is to keep you kind of alert and kind of to make sure that you're not sleeping and not following the movies while I'm teaching. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on to introduction part. So the introduction part is quite long. I need to apologize that, but there are a few things that is kind of important you to know. Okay, so who is this guy, Aki Mikko? So who I am. So I would like to give you a few highlights about the publication perspectives. I started as a guest editor in one of the journals that are very active and very important in my field, and the journal was called Journal of Multi-Body System Dynamics, and that was in 2011. So that I was a guest editor, invited editor, and I've been serving as a special editor in Journal of Computation and Nonlinear Dynamics. That is a journal that is published in ASME. That's American Society of Mechanical Engineering. Then I was invited to be an editor on board, an advisory board at the Journal of Multi-Body System Dynamics. I started there in 2008, and I was associate editor in the Journal of Computation and Nonlinear Dynamics. That again is an ASME journal from 2006 to 2012. And then 2019, that was a very important year to me, because then that's when I started as editor-in-chief in multi-body system dynamics. And I'm replacing Brendan Sheelan. Brendan Sheelan served 22 years as an editor-in-chief. So that's a very, very long period of time. He was very successful editor-in-chief. And I try to do my best to kind of fulfill his position as editor-in-chief. So this is the one thing that I'd like you to take a full advantage of. So ask me the questions, ask me or give me comments or anything that I can address in terms of editor-in-chief. So that's a little bit of my history. I have made a total of 115 journal publications. So this is not covering conference publication, but the journal publications only. And then something that in academic life, Roman knows this, is important and people would like to learn, okay, how is your H-index? H-index is something that if it is high number, then people appreciate that a lot. And other way around, if not so high, then it's a little hard to make a career as in academic life. So my Google Scholar H-index is 31, Scopus H-index is 25. Okay, so that's a little bit about myself. So this is the kind of the background that I would like to share with you, and my knowledge that I have gained as a author, my knowledge that I have gained as a reviewer, my knowledge as a associate editor and as editor-in-chief. That's what I would like to share with you today. Okay, now let's move on. So let's look at a little bit of situation. Let's think that, okay, you have a scientific manuscript. So what is that you can do with this scientific manuscript? Well, you can use that as a scientific report. And this is typically published internally. And internally refers here within the university. So I'm sure there is a kind of like a research report series in St. Petersburg University. We do have one in LUT University. it's not gaining too much of a publicity, but it's one possible way how your manuscript could be published. Not very often used at the moment, but it used to be more important in the past, no longer very relevant means of publication. Then what is more relevant means of publication is a conference papers. You know that there's a lot of different kind of conference. There is one that is organized in your university in the Department of Mechanical Engineering every year. The name of that Roman, you need to help me a little bit. What is the name of that conference that was canceled this year but was active last year? What was it?
Applied problems in mechanics.
Oh, right,
APM.
yeah. That's the one. This year you invited George Ambrosio to participate, but because of the coronavirus situation, it was canceled. Was it postponed or canceled? I think that it was canceled.
It was moved to online format and maybe in half or maybe in more of representative persons. So it was
Okay.
in online format.
Okay. So anyway, so this kind of meetings, this kind of conferences works in such a way that you are making a call for papers and you're sending out this call for papers, hoping that people will make their contribution to conference. And usually the conference papers are something that are with, depending on the conference, is usually a little lower quality than journal papers. Of course, this is not, necessarily the case, but this is my experience that sometimes the conference paper could be, say, reduced version of a journal paper. So it may not be including all the numerical results. Maybe the method section is not that thoroughly explained. So those could be the differences between the conference paper and journal paper. Another significant difference in terms of conference paper and journal paper is that journal papers are, generally speaking, very carefully reviewed. Whereas conference papers, sometimes the review process could be very mild. Sometimes there's no conference, there's no review process whatsoever. So if you look at something where you can easily get started in terms of scientific publication, the first thing would be, of course, internal reports, but really not much of a value to your academic life because you're not going to gain much of a publicity when publishing as an internal report. Then the next level may be conference papers. Again, here may attract a little bit of attention, but at least if nothing else, then the conference participants are very excited about your paper. But outside of the conferences, maybe a bit more challenging to attract people's attention. Then journal papers. This is something that people are reading very carefully. And usually they come with a high standard because they are typically reviewed as detailed as possible. And then the final thing here is a thesis, which is more your case because you are maybe looking the ways to publish your master level thesis, maybe even bachelor level thesis, and eventually, hopefully, doctoral level thesis. So this is the one option as well. Okay, so why it makes sense from all these possibilities, there's 4 options to select the journal paper, why it makes sense to publish in journals. Well, the first obvious answer is that that's the nature of academic business. And how is the nature of academic business? It's such the way that you want to have a paper that people are reading. So you're hoping to gain certain level of visibility, more the better. That's how it simply goes. Why you want to do that? Because you would like others to cite your work. You would like others to use your work as an ingredient, as a tool, inspiration, as something that makes them to cite it. And once you're citing these, once you get the citations, then this magical number we discussed, or I briefly mentioned earlier, that H index started to increase. And when that started to increase, you will be considered as a full member of academic community. and your accomplishment is getting bigger and you are more appreciated in the community, your life becomes easier and so on and so forth. So that is a nature of academic business. Now, review process can be seen as a very important learning process. So you learn how is really the state of the art in that particular field where you prepare the manuscript. That's something that you should appreciate. You should appreciate, that's what I say. But typically when you get the review statement first time in your life, it's like something that physically hurts, because review statements are always focusing on negative matters. They usually do not speak highly about your work, but they say, okay, we have a problem in this particular perspective, and many, many others. So they're usually not giving you much of a credits, but pinpointing the negative issues. Of course, this is unpleasant, but same time, it's the only way to learn and make yourself perform better in future. So that's why the review process, even though that it is kind of unpleasant, it is something that is important and helps you to learn. Because as soon as you think that you're the best in this planet, you start to come down. So there is so much thing to learn, so many million things to learn technically, another perspective. So it's learning process is an essence in academia. And of course, maybe you're overlooking something. Maybe your level of knowledge is not state of the art in your particular field or subject matter where you prepare the manuscript. And the review process is usually kind of like a wake-up call, a way that you can see, okay, I still have some holes in my knowledge, and these holes can be, or these holes is usually revealed in review process. Then another thing is that it really is a vehicle to challenge yourself. So if you think it really good, and I have figured out everything a while ago, and my manuscript is outstanding. So you can see how well it survives in Nature or Science. So those are the really high quality journals. And if you wanted to challenge your level of knowledge, and if you want to challenge yourself, that will be the way to go. You can submit your work to Nature or Science. Okay, a little bit about the academic career. I know this may be too early for you, but just to shortly, I mentioned already this cycle, this positive cycle about making journal paper, getting visibility, and then getting more citation. This is what I mentioned earlier. But there are other components that are important in this academic career. And the other component that is also somewhat important is community work. Community work is something that every now and then you will get an invitation to be a reviewer as a journal article, or you are asked to organize a conference or do something in a conference, be sharing a session in a conference. Those kind of works or assignments are considered as a community service, community work. And of course, they don't directly make any difference to your life, but it's a one additional way to gain visibility. And often you get community once you do your share in community work. Some people consider this as a just ignore everything that you get an invitation to disregard. My recommendation is a little bit opposite, because if everyone was thinking that's the way that the community work is not my field, that is not my business to do, this academic will not survive. We need it. So we need it, and is something that you may consider as a learning process. And you can learn in many different ways when you do the community work. As a reviewer, you can learn how is a different kind of publication. You may get the new ideas. You can see the latest information in your particular field. So it helps you to learn. Organizing conferences, you learn to your colleagues. Later, these colleagues could be very important to you when you are preparing, say, proposals something that is maybe called as a academic of Russia. I don't know, Roman, is there something called academic of Russia?
Russian Academy of Science.
Russian Academy of Science, and I guess that you can get some project from that particular founding agency. Can you?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so this community work helps in that regard as well, because at least how is the case in Academy of Finland is that they would like to learn how is the mobility in your projects, and mobility means that you have to be able to get an invitation letters from your colleagues such that they are accepting your students to visit in their teams, or you inviting some of the well-known professors to visit in your team. So this kind of mobility is very important. And if you have no community work, meaning no network, it becomes a bit difficult. Okay, so this is like a cycle of accomplishment, at least in a certain perspective. Okay, so why does it make sense to do this accomplishment? Well, here's a little bit unclear lines, but let me explain this to you. So I have here kind of like curves that are demonstrating the academic accomplishment. You know, this x-axis here is years, like 35 is the last number here. This refers to how many years since you got your doctorate degree. I mean, that this is for you guys, because you're master level students, you may wonder like, okay, do I ever benefit to this? Maybe not if you're not stepping to academic career, but if you do, then this is extremely important, because academic life, academic career, let me put it this way, or let's say independent academic career starts when you get your doctorate degree. First 7-8 years are the most important ones in terms of your academic career. So it's not necessarily the case that you're getting your doctorate degree, because pretty much all the employees in universities, they're holding a doctorate degree. So that's not going to be enough to differentiate you with another candidates, but accomplishments. And the accomplishment I'm referring here, particularly journal papers. How is that you've been able to produce journal papers? How much you've been able to collect citations? Because first of all, they tell that, okay, you are capable to express your thoughts in a written way, and you are making the work that is making a scientific impact in the sense that others are following your work. And the first 7-8 years are what makes a major difference. And I have here, like, you know, hypothetical cases. The case put it in a writing in red color, and the case put it in a writing in black color. And these refers individuals, two different individuals. They both have the same level of accomplishments. So this is, again, this y-axis is accomplishment, which is at this picture here in the right-hand side. The one individual have spent 4 years since getting a doctorate degree, another one 8 years. Now, how these people will be considered if there is an open professor position, say assistant, associate level professor position, how they will be treated? Well, they will be treated in such a way that people making a kind of projection from zero, I mean, here in origin of this coordinate system here, and the straight line that passed the accomplishment and ends at the age of, I mean, the year 35. This is how many years, again, after doctorate degree. And then they look, okay, this is the accomplishment, this is the potential of the person. And then there's this other person that have exactly same accomplishment, but that person achieved this accomplishment in the 4 years. They will do the same projection, and they can see, oh, there's a huge difference here. Look at this. So this person is this much better. I mean, the prediction, estimation, how much this person can do during the academic life, it's much higher than this person. So it's obvious they will hire this person. That's how it goes. So Roman, I would like to ask you the question. I know that I keep on pushing you, but do you think that this would make sense in Russia too? So are they evaluating the candidates in the same procedure, or something completely different?
No, I suppose in Russia we haven't this kind of procedure.
Okay.
Usually it's more depends on relation between
Relations.
participant. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Because we of course European country, but also have a lot of territory in East.
Okay. Okay, so then this is the story that is not told in Russia. Then I was not aware of that, but this is very much valid if you are looking for a position in Finland. So really, the first question they will ask is that how is your publication? And if you say, well, I have no publication, then they will say, thank you very much. Let's keep in touch, meaning that we are not going to keep in touch. So it's extremely, extremely important to have a good level of publication if you want to find your way to academia. No relation will help you. No relation whatsoever, because they only they are not going to ask, like, who is that in our field? They don't care about that, but they want to see your publications. Okay, so do we have any other comments, any questions, anything from the audience? Or do you guys feel that this is something that...
Professor Mikola, may I ask you?
Sure.
May you comment these percentages in the research line, like research 17%, teaching, supervising 20%, and so on?
Okay.
What it means that how much time you spent on each part of this research life, or what it means?
Oh, yeah. This is a slide. Yeah. Well, thank you, Roman. That's an outstanding question. You're referring these ones. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the one slide that I'm using as a career counseling. So I'm providing the career counseling for the people that are aiming to academia, and I'm giving you, because sometimes they ask, okay, how is that I can use my time to be most productive? And I used to give an answer that this is up to you, but now I'm more specific. I'm saying, okay, 70% research. Spend 70% research, because if you want to find your way to university that is emphasizing the research, you should spend 70% in research, meaning that you need to, as a professor, you need to guide your doctoral students, you need to work with your postdocs, you need to write papers by yourself, you need to maybe think about the book, this kind of stuff, but that should take 70% of your time. 70%. Then teaching is 20% all. Actually, usually in many of the universities, including LUT, that percentage is much lower than 20%. I could give you an example. So I'm teaching in LUT. I'm doing the teaching together with Surat, by the way. So we are teachers in the same class. And I'm teaching 2 hours per week, 2 hours per week. And I've been teaching in this particular subject matter, I don't know, 10 years now. So I use 50 minutes to prepare myself to lecture, 15 minutes. But this needs to be private information. Don't share this information. So that you too need to keep this as your personal information. So that's 2 hours and 15 minutes per week. Okay, so that's, you think that I'm working maybe 50 hours per week, so you can do the math. So how much it is. So that's, so let's put it, we can round it up. So it's a 5% that I'm teaching. And master level courses, of course, doctoral level is a completely different story, because then I have a lot of meetings and writing work that I'm doing with my doctoral students, but it goes to category of research, not teaching. Then getting funding, that's 5%. That actually varies, because there are times that I'm investing significantly to funding, because my students, including students, are not working with me because it's such a pleasant thing to do, but they're working with me because they want to get salary. And where is that the students will get the salary? From the projects that are funded by Academy of Finland, by Business Finland, whatever, different sources. but they do need funding. And to get the funding, you need to apply and you need to make a project proposals, and that usually takes quite a bit of time. And then community service, serving as a reviewer, serving as a conference organizer is another 5%. By the way, one more thing that I forgot to mention in this slide here is that there is like 15 years, 45 years old. I mentioned this is like somewhere in the middle of your career. There's like a threshold age, threshold time. And I mentioned this in that slide because most of the universities, they do not hire people that are older than 45 years old. I mean that this is an unwritten rule. Of course, they cannot make a statement that we do not hire people that are more than 50 years old, because that will be, I would say that will be against the law. But real life is such that it's become to be difficult to find a position if you are 40 years old or older, meaning that if you've been spent more than 50 years since your graduation as a doctor, this is when doors started to close. So you need to find your position, you need to travel, you need to build your network prior to that, because that's when things becomes to be difficult. And this holds, I don't know if it holds in Russia, but it's kind of become to be the case in many of the universities in Europe, and I kind of sensing that is a case in universities in Finland. Unwritten rule. My interpretation, I have nothing else than my interpretation to prove this case. But I'm proving this because if you look at the hires that the universities are doing, most of the hires are in assistant or associate level, meaning that they are looking for people from, say, this area. This is pretty much the area that it's important to find a position in new university. Again, I'm going to ask this from Roman. So how you feel about this? Makes any sense or?
Yes, I suppose in Russia it is also the same situation. Of course, if you are younger, it is much easier to organize network or find another place or job in another university and so on. And after you comes older and older, it's not so easy.
It becomes to be more difficult. That's
Yes,
right.
of course. Every university wants publications, grants, and so on. And of course, if you are old, your time is less. Your active time is less than younger colleagues. So, unfortunately, a real life in science.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump back to the journal business. This is journal procedure. So how it works. So it works such the way that, you know, there's quite a bit of authors. And this can be, I mean, the operation procedure of the journal can be considered as a triangle of pyramids, however you want to place that or however you want to put it. So there's a lot of authors that are looking the ways to publish their work. Okay. So once you have published a certain amount of papers, once you have a doctorate degree and so on and so forth, you may be invited as a reviewer. And usually they don't invite that many times. So if you keep on declining the invitation, eventually they don't ask. Okay, is that something serious? Not necessarily, but it means that your way up in this pyramid will be no longer possible. Because among the reviewers, some of them will get an invitation as an associate editors. These are usually many of the journals. These are the ones that are really handling the review process. And then once, you know, editor-in-chief will retire, then among associate editors, the 1-2 max will be selected as an editor-in-chief. Editor-in-chief is in top of this pyramid. There is something that is above the editor-in-chief, which is, of course, the publication house. But when the manuscript comes to journal, editor-in-chief will take a first look. And if it's good enough, if the journal publication fulfills certain quality requirements, then it goes to associate editors. Associate editors will select the reviewers, and that's how it goes. The review process stops here, and authors are not, of course, have no power to do the review process, but that's how it goes. So climbing up in this pyramid, you have to first be an author. That's obvious. You need to serve as a reviewer. You need to serve as an associate editor to find your way as an editor-in-chief. Okay, finally, students. Okay, are there any other reasons for doing the community work for reviewing the papers? So of course, the gaining networks and getting certain level of visibility, community work usually helps, and then it could be, say, that you're organizing a conference. That is the one way to do the community work, and it gives you quite a bit of visibility. Now, let's say, as an example, the conference that is in is organized in St. Petersburg. Of course, you get a lot of visibility, and people know you because of that. So it makes sense to do it. So network visibility. That is a kind of the reason to do it. So Suraj, are you happy with that, or you would like to hear something additional in that regard?
I think you answered my question.
So what was it? It's a little hard to hear you today. Yeah.
I think you answered my question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. So we still have quite a bit of slides to go. Okay, I think I did not explain this to you. So what to publish? But this is very, very important, because what makes a difference between journal article and, say, other scientific publication, or let's say that what is the difference between the journal article and the article that you publish in a school magazine? Well, the great difference is that the results must be new. Previously unknown information must be in the journal article. If not, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to publish it. So novelty is extremely critical matter to have. So if you're missing the novelty, your life will be very hard. It will be very difficult. How much novelty you should carry then? Okay, well, that's a very difficult question, because there is no way to answer that correctly, but there have to be certain level of novelty. Usually I would say that if you're looking for a high quality publication and you want to publish that out in journals that are highly appreciated, then there should be clear level of novelty. Clearly something that is new, clearly something that is previously unknown information. And that brings an interesting question, because in the field of mechanical engineering, it's very common that people are using commercial software. Say they're using commercial finite element software, ANSYS or Abaqus or whatever you wanted to use it. How is that in the case of using commercial software? Are you able to produce something that is previously unknown information? Well, you can, of course, if selecting an application to be novel enough. But if you just use a commercial software as it is designed to be used, you're solving an engineering problem using a commercial software, it's going to be very, very hard to publish that, because where is a novelty? What is a new scientific information you're bringing in? That's going to be almost like non-existing, almost practically non-existing. Okay, significance. So, of course, if you get the novelty in a matter that no one cares, maybe your paper will be rejected, and no one cares means that you are looking for an application that is no longer a significant application, but is a niche area. Significant. So, okay, so you have to set the line for understanding of something that is very, very important thing. And reliability. So you have to make things in such a way that somebody else can come and redo the thing, which is difficult, particularly when we are looking at in our field, my field, and Surat's field is a computational dynamics. We're using complicated software codes. It's extremely difficult to read what we are carrying out, or what we are representing in the articles, but you have to make an effort to do so. So those are the kind of like preconditions that are needed to publish something in the journal. How to select the journal then? Okay, so first thing that is important is that you need to learn a journal aims and scope. And you need to check how is a reference list if you're in your manuscript. And then you should compare the aims and scopes to keywords you have in your manuscript. That is something very, very important, because often when you get rejected from the editor's desk, the reason being that it is out of the scope. It is simply out of the scope. You are trying to publish something in a journal that is not in that particular field. That's unfortunate, because sometimes it feels that if you get this out of the scope rejection, then others are somehow aware of that, and it seems to be very, very difficult to publish it. So you're kind of in a cycle that is hard to cut. So it makes sense to submit your work in first place to journal that is appreciating your work, and it is your field of work. Reputation. Journals have their different kind of reputations. Sometimes they have a reputation of being very slow. Sometimes they have a reputation of being very fast. So it's good to be aware of that. The only way to be aware of that is to ask that from your network. So do you have any am I still on?
Yes, it seems it was some problems, but now it seems okay. Yeah, I hear.
Okay, I got the message, something about the video stop working. Oh yeah, I can see my head is weirdly twisted. So it seems that my video is no longer active. Let me put it off and let me put it back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, wonderful.
So what was that? That was weird. Maybe maybe my computer went to sleep, because I don't know. But I was here to selecting how to select the journals, a reputation. So ask from your colleagues what kind of experience they have from the different journals, and they can immediately tell you that I was very badly treated in this particular journal. So don't ever submit your work to this particular journal. So this is something that you can only get an information from your peers, from your colleagues. The impact factor is something that you can easily see from each one of the journals. It's usually mentioned in the first page when you log into the journal. Higher the better, of course. But impact factor having a very different numerical values depending on the field you're working with. Just to give you an example, the impact factors in the field of mechanical engineering are much lower than impact factors in medical field. So that's why maybe the better way than looking at the impact factors, looking these Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 categories. This category is available when you simply type in Q1 mechanical engineering or Q1 computational engineering, some keywords, and it takes you to this website. In this website, there are all the journals. If we're speaking about the mechanical engineering, all the journals in the field of mechanical engineering, and they are ranked. They are ranked such the way that the 25% are in the category, highest possible category. Then there's a middle Q2, Q3, and then there's a lowest possible category. And of course, if you want to challenge yourself, you want to publish your work in a Q1. Then, Suras, were you aware of this kind of Q situation?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a new information to you.
Yes.
Okay. Then the publication forum, which is only valid in certain Nordic countries, and I think it's Finland, Norway, Denmark, someplace else. Was it Austria that it is they're using this kind of category? So it's basically kind of redoing these Q categories, but usually using just maybe 3 levels. So there are publication in the first level, which is the kind of like a standard publication. Second level, which is significantly better quality journals, and then third level, which is to usually like really, really respected journal in the field. And then, of course, it makes sense to check if your journal is in Web of Knowledge and Scopus database. This is usually very, very significant because often when people are getting started with a new field, they're first making a literature review, and often they're using a Scopus or Web of Knowledge. And if your article is not in those databases, it becomes a bit difficult to collect citations. And again, the citations are needed to make your impact factor to grow, your age factor to grow, and so on and so forth. So we're back in that side. Okay, so those are the journals. Here's my mouse. Usually the journals are telling you what is the percentage of all the submissions that are rejected. So if the rejection rate is high, say 95%, you can do the math. So statistically, it becomes to be really, really difficult to publish in that particular journal. If there is a certain delay, how fast your journal comes to be public. Maybe open access journals, they have a paid charges. Sometimes they have word limitations, maybe something else that is worth to consider. So this is like a puzzle. So there's many components in this equation, and you try to look at the balance about what makes sense for you. What is the most appropriate journal to your case? So it's not easy to give you one simple answer that this is where you should always use. Okay, so let's take a look. How are we doing in class quizzes? So I have a question to you, which is how to find a journal to your manuscript. And there are 3 options. The first option is that this does not matter. A journal scope is not important. By studying and then by following oh my God, this is incorrect. So this is, I'm sorry, this is not the kind of the answer. This is coming from the material that for some reason is not updated. Let's skip this. Sorry about that. I don't know why I don't have the right kind of in-class quizzes with me today. So maybe we're not going to have in-class quizzes today. Okay, finally, we are moving on from the introduction to real deal, which is preparing the manuscript. And steps that you need to follow is first prepare the manuscript and then select the journal. Sometimes people would like to do this other way around. My personal experience is that the best way is first manuscript, then journal, because then you will have all the freedom you need to prepare your manuscript. If you first select the journal, then you're more limited. And that's why I recommend to use this order that is mentioned in this slide. And then study the instructions to authors. That is something very important. Submit to journal, one journal. I know that some researchers are doing a little bit of like not the criminal action, but something that is for sure not appreciated in a community. And they do the trick that they submit their manuscript to say 5 different journals. And then they are waiting to get the review comments from one of them. And if it is negative, then they will keep on, doing the reviews in other journals. And once they get the positive decision or something that is a little bit positive decision, then they will cancel the process from other journals. If you've been catched to do that, that's going to be very, very unfortunate to you, because usually authors doing this kind of actions are put in a blacklist, meaning that they don't accept your submissions anymore. But that's not good. So one journal at a time. And some journals, particularly if they are under the same company, they immediately recognize that this is already submitted, and it can cause you significant difficulties. Sometimes authors are able to recognize that, okay, now I see that there is manuscript that is exactly same that's submitted in other journal, but they can be the one that gets you.
Is it like they have some kind of database if like different journals under the same company, they have some kind
Well,
of database?
yeah, in the same company, they can recognize it. They can easily recognize it because they are, once the manuscript comes in a process, first thing they do is this plagiarism check. Once they do it once, your paper is in a plagiarism database. So then once you resubmit it, they immediately see that, okay, there is a plagiarism issue. And they see, okay, where is the similarity comes from? And then they realize, oh, yeah, actually, it is this paper that is already submitted to this journal. That's it. So they can catch you. So then sometimes when you're using different companies, reviewers are able to see, okay, I was reviewing the paper which is exactly same than this one. So don't do it. I know that there may be a temptation to do it. Sometimes I can see so stupid mistakes that you can, because the different journals have a different submission templates. If you're using an incorrect submission template, editor-in-chief becomes to be suspicious. Like, oh, hold on, what's going on? So why this is having this kind of template that I know that is being used in other journals? And they are starting to look like, okay, why is that they're using incorrect submission template? And that's another way that you may be catched. Okay, do we have any other comments or questions? All right, so then once you do the submission, then you wait the review results. Then always, that never ever happens that they accept the paper as it is. That's not the case. That's not possible. So you need to revise, prepare the rebuttal later, if needed. It's always needed. That's not the case. That is if needed. It's always needed. So you revise your manuscript, you prepare your rebuttal later, where you're addressing every single item that was raised in your reviews, and then you're explaining how did you modify your manuscript based on the review comments. Not just saying, okay, I decided to do nothing, because then the editor-in-chief said, then I decided to reject you. And you don't want to see that to happen. So you have to have this humble attitude. Okay? Sometimes, let me take this off. Sometimes this cycle can take 3 cycles. Sometimes possible that you're revising your manuscript, and it goes to reviewers. They will send another set of comments. You do the rebuttal, you revise the manuscript, and again and again and again, sometimes 3 times. So it's possible. Sometimes they are limiting this. Like in a journal that I'm editor-in-chief, if the revised manuscript will get review comments which say that major revision is needed, then it's automatically rejected. So we cancel the process because we can see that, okay, the first submission got major revision, fine. So let's give them a chance to modify it. And if they fail to get the chance, if they still need to be, if they still ask to get the major revision as once revised manuscript, then we're thinking, but this is not going to go anywhere. So let's just cancel the process. Let's reject the paper. But that's it. Then you just need to get started from the beginning, and there's no way to complain. I mean, you can always complain, but it's not going to make any difference to your life. Okay, finally, you get an acceptance from the editor. Then you check the proofs, which is important too. You sign the copyright, and then your paper comes out. That's the process. Preparation of manuscript. Okay. So, of course, because we are looking at high quality publication, what matters is a first impression. So when it comes to editor's desk, the editor is browsing it over, or taking that from the PDF, looking a little bit about the figures, reference list, tables, equations. And if immediately they can see some inconsistency, something that is not correct. Figures are with the low quality, reference list is inconsistently written, tables are kind of crappy, hard to read them, equations are jumping, it makes no sense. You're not making a difference about the scalar, vector, matrix notations. I mean, that your chances to get rejected automatically will become very, very high. So consider this as a dress code in a formal party. So it's same kind of thing. It's must have. So if you go to a very important party, having shirts on, just a shirt and some sport equipments, people not gonna like you too much. So you have to respect the dress code. So consider this as a dress code, which you have to take seriously. If not, people aren't gonna take you seriously. And generally speaking, one tonal paper requires one person year. This is my kind of experience. Sometimes you hear these stories that, okay, I made a paper during the weekend. Sure, you can make a paper during the weekend. But remember, the title of this presentation was a quality publication. Quality publication you're not going to make during the weekend. That's not going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to anyone. So it requires, generally speaking, one person year. Of course, measuring that by calendar, maybe it's not going to be 1 year, but less, because you have colleagues and coworkers that are helping you to put together a manuscript. And remember, once you make a paper, it will be out there rest of your life. You can be either very proud of it, or you can be very ashamed of it. There's no way to get it off anymore. So once it is there, it's there, and it's going to be with you rest of your life. I mean, when it used to be hard copies, when the journal were hard copies, you can maybe theoretically collect all the copies in Earth, put it in the ground, and forget about it. You cannot do it anymore because it's digital copies. They're all over, and that's it. You cannot get it out anymore. Okay. Now, this is valid in our thesis work as well. Many authors are looking the way to impress their knowledge, and they really don't care about information. And it should be another way around. So you should be able to make your stories in the most understandable way, as understandable as possible. That's the way it goes. Now, simple story is more important than a complex story. Try to keep things simple. And this is valid in your thesis work as well. So you need to learn to simplify things, and you need to learn the way to be able to express the work you're doing to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, to your spouse, your mother, people that are not necessarily in the field. You have to be able to find what is a core content of the work. And this is a serious, serious problem in many of the stories. So they are very confusing, and they are very, very complex to read. And readers, reviewers, they don't have a good will to understand you. They just look at the most possible, like, incorrect way they can to make incorrect interpretation about your work. And that's going to be very, very unfortunate to you. Now, good story is always based on one theme, one kind of message that it is carrying. And this is valid in thesis work as well. So if you're making a thesis, your master thesis about, let's say, in the field of computational dynamics, such that it is application about the vehicles, application about airplanes, application about this, and it's not going to be good. It's going to be just chaotic. Simple the theme, the better is the story. Believe me, it may sound like what, but yes, it is. You keep it simple, people are going to love it, people understand it, and you're able to tell the story in a simple way. This is kind of the problem that I can see that the most of the people are suffering from. So put it in a kind of short, 1 paper, 1 story, not 1 paper, 3 stories. That's not going to fly. And I have seen so many papers that there's a 1 paper, 7 stories. No, it will be accepted. It's not going to be accepted. It's going to be rejected immediately. And now, this is something that is my advice to you when you do your master thesis work. You must be able to summarize your work. This is not necessarily paper. It could be your thesis in a 1 simple sentence. 1 simple sentence. You can maybe even need to the tattoo into your arm and telling this is what is a theme of my story. It has to be clear, and that's something that that you need to practice to do it. This is usually requires some years to be able to do that. But if you're able to get this idea already this time, it definitely helps you to write your thesis work. So simple sentence. What is the reason you do the work? And once it is clear, put it in a writing, stay on it. Don't change it anymore. Okay. Any other things? Any other? Do we have any comments? Anything? Roman, do you have anything that you would like to add to this, or are you just happy with my explanation?
No, I haven't have any questions. Thank you very much. I suppose your speaker was motivated.
Okay.
So
Okay, Suras, what do you feel? Is this the case?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So rest, I don't want to push you, but it would be so nice to hear from you. You can say, okay, I agree, or I disagree. Or you can ask how long this will take, and I can tell you that too. I mean, this lecture, how long this lecture will take. No comments. I kind of hear that there was a mic open from one of the participants. Was that incorrect, or?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask a question about the steps of preparations for the publication.
Yes, sir.
On slide 17, I think, or maybe earlier.
Here.
Yeah.
I think it is here.
So I just don't really understand about the submission to only 1 journal, and I think you said that every journal has their own templates. So how I understand this, that you kind of tailor your manuscript to their template and then submit it, so you can just resend it to many journals, because otherwise they'll expose you for like aiming for the different publications as well. Is that correct?
Okay, so you were asking about the template, what kind of template you should select. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of this thing about the templates. So how different journals can identify that you have submitted to different publications.
Okay, yeah, I can tell you the few. Okay, so there's an example. So there are a paper that is coming to review process in a multi-body system dynamics. So we can see from the template that is actually a template that is took from another journal. So I can immediately see that, okay, this is a template that is not our template, but it's something else. Okay, I become suspicious, like, okay, why they're using this template? And they're using this template perhaps because they've been initially submitting the work to that journal, but it was rejected. But it's something that I becomes to be cautious. I becomes to be suspicious, like, why they do that? You shouldn't do it. You should either use the journal template that is often offered in journal website, use no template at all. That will be okay as well. In certain journals, they're forcing you to use a template. Like I remember the IAAA Access, they're forcing you to do their manuscript by using their template. And if that's the case, then you must follow that. But if they don't mention what kind of template you should use, you should not use any template at all, because that will do the work. But then careful with this. it's going to be very risky business to submit your work to 2 journals, because if you catch by doing that, you will be rejected from both journals and you will be placed to blacklist. I mean, they are not going to accept your submissions any longer.
So you mean just to not submit the same publication to both journals at the same time, or maybe it's possible, for example, to get rejected and then maybe like readjust your paper a bit, or maybe like revisit it or rewrite it a bit and submit it to some other journal, for example?
Oh yeah, this is okay. So so it's, if you get rejected, then you started again this process and you revise your manuscript and you resubmit it. Completely fine. But okay. I'm saying that simultaneously the 2 journals, that is a criminal
action. That will be very awkward. I understand why would they blacklist you, because
but every now and then it happens and people are very surprised that I thought that it is okay to do it. It's not okay to do it.
Okay, thank you.
That was an outstanding. Do we have a communication here? What? Have we become to be friends?
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Do you start publishing yourself without any guidance from knowledgeable people? I missed it.
Okay, so if you like to publish by yourself, you can do it. You can make it happen. So if you are a student and you want to submit your work to a journal, you can make it happen. That's going to be okay. So nothing prevents you to do it. So go ahead and do it. But what is important is that usually to get the first paper accepted, that's a little bit hard work, and it helps to cooperate with people that are having the history in the field. Because maybe what you think that is high quality work is not something that the journal appreciates. So that's why maybe the first articles, maybe the first papers may be a good idea to do with somebody that knows the business. Somebody that knows the business, that's clear. That's your supervisor in the university, that's Roman, that's whoever is your supervisor in your university.
Oh, okay. Just my first international publications was with professors in my university, last university, and I think you do also. You did also, or did you start publishing yourself?
Okay, so you were asking how was my history?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was same that yours. It's everyone have the more or less same story. So it's extremely hard to get started by yourself. So of course, I was publishing with the people that are very good in the field. So most of my publication in my early career was made by Professor Ahmed Sabana. So he was my supervisor, and he was very, very good. So he helped me with all these kind of tricks, and he helped me to put the paper in a level that is needed to be, to make that acceptable. So I'm still very grateful to help that I got from him. So, and he's really, really good. He's extremely good. And it's quite unbelievable that these people that are having a long history in the field, they can immediately detect, okay, we have a problem here and here and here. This is okay. So, yeah, but I started with the, if you look at my publication, many of my early publications are made with Ahmed Sabana. He's a professor in the University of Illinois at Chicago. That's where I was as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me, may I ask you a question?
Of course.
I want to ask about H-index. Maybe you tell in more detail about that. I want to ask, maybe exists a typical range of this index, or maybe exists some value that considered large or small? So maybe exists a typical range of this.
Yeah, this is a very hard to tell. It's a similar kind of number. I mean, if you look at the absolute number, it's similar kind of number than the number of total impact factor. It ranges seriously from one discipline to another. And if you are in the same, say you are in the field of physics, people expecting your H factor to be very high, meaning say 50, even more than that. And if you're in the field of, say, medical field, that's more or less same than in physics. But if you're in the field of engineering, generally speaking, the numbers, absolute numbers are lower than many other disciplines.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
Can I ask one question, Aki?
Sure, yeah.
So just to follow his question, is maybe you can explain how this H index actually, I mean, how is it calculated? I mean, of course, it's
Yeah,
based on
okay.
publication and citation, but I know that, but if you want to just like give a brief about how the H index is
Sure.
calculated.
Will do. Okay. So it goes such the way that so it's computed based on the number of publications. So if you have one paper, and it was cited, this is a paper here, the paper, and it is cited one time. So your H index will be 1. I'm sorry about my handwriting, it's not very clear. So if you have 2 papers and both are cited 2 times, your H index will be 2. So, and if you have n number of publications and they're all cited n times, your H will be n. Meaning that if you have 100 publications, each one of them has collect 100 citations, your H index will be 100. That's how it goes. If you have 10 publications, I mean, let's say that you have 100 publications. 10 most cited publications have collect, each of them have collect, first one collect 20 citations, second 18, then so on and so forth. 10th had collect 10 citations, so your H index will be 10. What this number is supposed to be, what is a good number? That is really, really hard to answer. Higher the better, of course. Higher the better. Some of the professors in the field of, like even in LUT University, I believe that they have H index that is like 70. Those are in the field of physics, maybe even higher than that. Okay, but yeah, it depends heavily on your discipline. Okay, do we have any other comments or questions?
Yes, can I ask you one more question?
Of course.
It's not about actually publishing, but did I understand correctly that modeling with commercial software is not enough like attractive to publishing?
Well, that is a good question. This was mentioned, I think that it was, where was it? I think it was in the very beginning here.
Yes.
This is a good question because, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, that it makes the life a bit more difficult if you are using the tools that is well-known tool, and usually the commercial software is considered as a well-known tool. You have no really theoretical development because you're using commercial tool. You may add some additional features to commercial software. Maybe you can make it possible, or you can improve the commercial software in a way that is capable to do something that is otherwise impossible. That is a clear novelty. But if you use, let's say that if you have a cantilever beam, and you're solving the response of cantilever beam by using a commercial finite element code, that's going to be no novelty. Everyone,
problem, yes.
Yeah, because everyone knows that. Or let's say that there is something else, that there is a structure, some kind. You're solving the statics by using commercial finite element software. This is using the software for the problems where it is designed to be used. So there's no novelty. So it's lacking the novelty. But if you're using finite element software to solve something that is going to be very, very challenging, and it's justifying to use a commercial software, why not? You can make it happen, and it may be carrying the scientific novelty, but it makes things more complicated. This is a kind of weird because, you know, then it's no wrong to use commercial software, and it's justified in many cases, but usually it's having more critical reviews than not using the commercial software. Okay, I got so Suraj was putting in a chat window that Albert Einstein, its index was 44. That's amazingly low, by the way, amazingly low. But maybe you can check, what was this, a very important physicist that died in England, in UK. What was his name again? Can you please help me? He was suffering from this ALS disease. What was
Hopkins?
Yeah, Hopkins, yeah. So Suraj, can you check how is his H index? So I think it is coming momentarily. Oh, and then Roman, I need to ask you this because we've been here online already quite a while. So is it going to be a case that we're going to continue until 6 o'clock and then we will close, or how you would like to do this?
It's 125.
125, that's Hopkins.
Yes.
The prolongation of lecture depends on you. If you have time, we are ready to be here.
Okay, so let's continue a little while, and then I would like to leave a little bit of material for next week. But next week, I'm going to move to a different topic, and I'm going to start discussing about the computational dynamics. But it's amazing that we have this good discussion. I'm amazed. Good questions, extremely good questions. Thank you. Okay, I think that I was. Let me think. I was not here, but we look a little bit about how to prepare the manuscript. One story case. Okay.
Yes, here.
Here. Okay. I have just a few tricks to you. A few things that I said that is important to have a good first impression, and it is important because if not having the high quality first impression, I think that is not often mentioned, but is the case that the editor will reject you. And some journals, they do the rejection by saying that it is out of scope. That's not necessarily the case. They may be, I mean, your work could be very well fitting to this journal that you're trying to get the paper accepted, but the quality is low. And editors, they always have these, answers, ready-made answers for submissions. And one of the ready-made answers is rejected because out of the scope. And my experience is this, that if sometimes you get the information, and sometimes you get the rejection which says out of the scope, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's out of scope, but it's a low quality. And that what makes your life difficult, because maybe it's out of the scope, maybe it is true case that is out of the scope, or maybe it's just a low quality. So you want to eliminate these low quality options as well as you can. And really the only way to make that happen is that you need to make a good first impression. And then you need to follow the few instructions that I have in this slide. First of all, title should be illustrative. It should clearly reflect what is that you have in your manuscript. And this is valid in master thesis as well. Avoid one thing, avoid abbreviations, because I have seen the titles that are like GFD K27, something like that. And people are like, what the heck is this? So like, what this refers to? And that is explained in a manuscript. but don't put the abbreviation, don't put this kind of like symbol abbreviation to title, because it makes it very, very confusing to understand the subject matter, understand the content. Avoid that. Then once you have the title, please check the scope. Make sure that it's fitting the scope. And like, again, let me give you an example. So I'm the editor-in-chief in Multibody System Dynamics. Make sure that multibody word is in your manuscript, because it's surprising that there are a lot of submissions where the word multibody is mentioned 0 times. 0 times. I always searching like, okay, how many times this word multibody is mentioned? And I see 0 times. It makes me wonder, like, why is it they submitting this word to this journal? So maybe this is out of the scope. So it's a red flag. If you're collecting enough these red flags, it will be rejected. So you need to be very, very careful with that. So very, very careful. So please keep in mind that you're not going to fall to this problem. These keywords, so usually asking the keywords, check that they match the scope of the journal. So if you're submitting something to multibody system dynamics, make sure that there are something in the field of multibody system dynamics in your keywords. But if you're saying something like control system, you say something about measurements, then you're like, okay, but come on, why you do this? Because obviously you're not in the field, so you shouldn't submit this to this journal. Then objective, this is valid for articles, and this is valid for thesis work as well. You should be able to clearly explain the objective. Remember, there was earlier mentioned that one paper should carry one story. What is the story should be clearly mentioned in objectives. Don't hide that. Don't hide it, because you need to clearly say, this is what I'm going to do in my work, in my scientific publication, in my thesis. And if you hide the objective somewhere in the text, people are looking for where is an objective a little while, and then they don't find it, and they think that this is not carrying any new, novel scientific information, and that they reject it. Same holds to your thesis work. You have to be able to express why you do the work. Explicitly mention objective of this work is this and that. And also another word of warning is that never ever mix the method and application. This is what I can see very often as well. There is a method section which kind of gets started from the method, and soon people start to discuss about the application. Make sure that you do not mix this thing. Method is a toolbox that can be used to wide variety of applications. Application is an application, but don't mix them. Okay? Any comments on this, or should I just continue? Okay, I think I will continue. Storyline. Storyline, I couldn't emphasize how important is a storyline. And this is what I can see that is missing very, very often. So storyline, you know, this is kind of like extended storyline, should follow the theme like in a movie. Even a thesis work should be kind of the movie. Not necessarily as excited as some of the good movies like Terminator, or I don't know, whatever movies you want and whatever movies you like to see, but it should follow the same storyline. Okay, what is this storyline? Is a, you know, character, general introduction. This actually holds even in a separate sentence, I mean, separate sections of the work. We gotta look like how this storyline can be fitted to introduction section, but introduction of the subject matter, that is important. Then the setting, background of your study, that's something that is a literature review sometimes. Problems you're solving, objective of your work. What is that you wanted to do here? It has to be explicitly, clearly, something that people understand and can be found at. Methods and your findings. Again, here there is a little bit of mixing the application and methods, but it's an action. This is an action thing. And then comes the climax. Like every good movie, they have a climax. It's a conclusion. And then what these conclusions means in a bigger picture, that's a resolution. So this is the storyline that is extremely, extremely important. And there are a few tips that I can tell you that helps you to put the good storyline together. Let's look at how the storyline fits the introduction. This is how I would like you to put that introduction together, no matter what you do. Okay. First thing, this is typically a paragraph. The first thing you should do is that you should explain the big picture. What is this subject matter that you are starting? Then, how is, what is its relevance? Say that I'm studying the cantilever beam. This is again the paper, which is a hypothetical case of cantilever beam. You say, okay, there's a lot of cantilever beams in this planet, and there's a lot of companies that are working with the cantilever beams. You're telling the big picture. So that's a general introduction, character. Okay. Then you conduct the literature review. You look at the studies that have been dealing with the cantilever beam. And again, remember the cantilever beam is not the good idea to make a paper, but hypothetical. So you're making the literature review. And you are looking at, okay, the cantilever beam is being studied in this many articles, and it's been, it's been looking at from the different viewpoint. All right. That's something that is kind of highlighting the most significant publication in the field of your story, cantilever beam this time. Then you're saying, okay, what is missing in the literature? Remember, you're kind of going to go towards the climax. What is missing? So there have been this many papers, but none of them have looked at this problem in this particular point of view. Okay, I can see that. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Why this missing part is important to study. Okay, let's say that there is a lot of literature about the cantilever beam, but no one has looked at the cantilever beam with a very special cross section. This kind of cross section, arbitrary cross section. This is missing in the literature. And then you're saying somebody should do it because this is important, because this kind of cross section can be found in this and these applications. Okay. And then you say, here's an objective, my work. My work is to solve this missing piece. Objective of this work is to introduce a new procedure, new method to be able to analyze the cantilever beam with this kind of cross section. That's what it is. And then you say what it means, why you want to do it. This is following the same storyline that was in the big picture, but now this time in the introduction section only. This needs a little bit of practice. What helps in this practice is that you make a bullets about such the way that each bullet stands for one paragraph, that you will eventually put it in a writing. But you're not necessarily writing the details, but more what will be in this paragraph. And then it makes sure that you are not repeating things, and you mention everything you want to mention, and then it's going to be consistent, and the story will be fluent. So that's something that I couldn't emphasize, that this is extremely important. Building the skeleton, building the storyline is the hardest part. Takes most of the time. It's not a simple thing to do. But you said, think about the big picture, storyline. And once you have a storyline ready, then you start writing. This is my advice to you. Not necessarily the other way around, because you get started from the big picture. Then you start mentioning about the objective and so on and so forth. Then you explain the literature review. Again, you saying that objective, and then you mention that number of times. It becomes to be very, very chaotic, very complicated to follow. Okay, now let's hear your comments in this. Do you have any? Not this time. Okay, this is pretty much mentioned already. So bones up. So build your story, so your narrative. I mean that it's kind of weird. Sounds maybe weird that, okay, we are not really storytelling people, but we are. Whatever you write something, it's a story, and it has to follow the certain theme, and you need to be able to express yourself systematically and consistently. And that's why this bones up is important. And my advice is to you is that write these bullets. I want to say here this, and this is where I want to say that, and this is where I say that. And then you can put it in a one page perhaps, and you can see, okay, now it's in a good balance. Now it seems that everything that I want to mention can be mentioned, and it's not emphasizing anything too much, and it's not hiding anything, but it's a good story, fluent story, well in balance. Plot. This is what is needed. So the plot you need to put together, and it really requires some thinking. It's not just the writing is writing, but the plot. What is a plot of the work you're doing? So that's what it is really, really needed. And once you're happy with the plot element skeleton, meaning these bullets, okay, I have each paragraph as a one plot element, then you can start putting things together. But the outlining, this story is mentioned here that is 75%. Maybe not so much, but think about how significant part is that. It is really significant. All right, so then what else I would like to say here? Yeah, this is a good advice. No writing until you're happy with your outline. So once you're completely happy with this is my story, then you start writing. This is actually a little bit against the instructions that I'm giving to my students. Sometimes I'm saying that you have to put things in a writing because early enough, because otherwise this kind of disappear from your head. So things tend to fade off from your head. So you need to put things in a writing. These are kind of the components and ingredients that later will be placed to storyline. Storyline is still very, very important. Okay, I see that I have still a few slides to go, but what I would like to recommend this time, let me see what else I have. Okay, I have some stuff about the structure. I have some other instructions.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
I have a question about the size of our publication. Should we write in a comfortable size, or we should try to find a way to write a smaller or bigger size of our publication?
So what is a proper amount of words, basically? That's what you're asking.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Can I answer that question, Aki?
Sure, of course.
So my question to, I can't read the name, sorry. So when you read an article, what kind of article do you like reading? Something that is large in length or something that is short and very descriptive?
Short, of course.
So of course, you also you answered your question.
With big pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that it's all about what is needed to make it understandable. What is needed to make it understandable? That is answering your question. This way, I hope you see my screen because I am highlighting here one paper, one story. This is always stick on this. If you have, because sometimes people are thinking, okay, I have two ideas. I want to combine them to one paper. Don't do that. Because the result is not 2 times better paper, but it's 2 times weaker paper. And this is what the people seems to forget all the time. So they think that it's a very good idea to combine 2 subjects to one paper. And then when I'm reading it, I'm like, what is this? Or what is this? Or what is that they wanted to tell to me? What is the story that they want to tell to me? Like, usually I can't figure that out. So I'm disappointed. And as a reviewer, I was thinking, no, this is not good. So let me just reject this. But outstanding discussion. What else? Do we have anything else? Okay. So I was kind of thinking that the rest, few last minutes, because I'm planning to close this at 6 o'clock. What's the time in Russia? Is it 5:50?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're in a time having the same time. Okay, so it's just the one slide, and then it's a little bit about the structure. This is still more about this kind of like plot, a narrative, storyline. That's what this is about, and different kind of ways to twist the storyline. And this is what I would like to say for next week lecture. This would take me, I don't know, we'll see, maybe 45 minutes, and after that we're ready to move on to computational dynamics. But prior to this, so this is a slide that I'm planning to use as my last slide. Okay, it's this storyline, this plot of the paper. So once you have the plot ready, once you have all the bullets that you wanted to mention ready, my recommendation is not to start writing from the beginning, not necessarily from the beginning, because you know the subject matter becomes to be more familiar to you when you're writing the method section, and you have more deeper understanding what is it you're doing. And then once this whole thing is clear, then it makes sense to go back in the beginning and write the introduction. And then the last thing that I recommend you to write is an abstract. Reason behind it is that abstract is something that people look in the very beginning. This should be your kind of like your best view. This should be the best you can tell about the work. It is, like mentioned here, advertisement. So people either get excited or they don't. And abstract makes that difference. So that should be your best effort. So leave that as the last thing you do, because then you have all these results in your knowledge, you have all the methods, and put an effort to make it enjoyable. Now, if you get this, if the reader is able to get this positive impression, then they may continue. Reader, this time is equal than reviewer. Okay. All right. Then what else I should mention here? All right, so there's a little bit of kind of like tips that make sense you to follow. You know, these figures is something that, you know, there's many different kind of quality of figures. I should show you a few examples, and I think next time I can do it. I can show you something that you can immediately recognize that this is not the good figure. And it could be as simple as, you know, there could be a coordinate system. Coordinate system takes a vector, and the vector goes to one body, and then it continues to another body. And there are like gaps here, kind of like weird thing that it can happen. But people are immediately able to see it. They can see the inconsistencies in a figure. And there's something that easily attract quite a bit of attention, not positive attention this time. So make sure that these kind of simple things are in order, and that they're with the highest possible quality. And then here is mentioned, like, people should be able to read the work. That's the way that they read the introduction. They checking out how are the characters, what is the purpose of the work, and then they leave the rest with no attention, and they jump to conclusion. Conclusion and introduction have to be in the same planet. Worst possible scenario is such that conclusions has nothing to do with the introduction, nothing to do with the objective of the work. And it's surprising that that too happens. And it's a human thing, because you're writing, you start with the introduction, you don't have a plot. You write the introduction, then you move on to method section. You're writing something a little bit off from the introduction. Then you're moving on the result section, you are more off from the introduction. And then finally, once you read the conclusion, that has no connection to introduction. This is a serious, serious problem. That's why the plot, these bullets, make significant difference. Okay, so what else? I got information that it's 5 to 6. I still have one more meeting today, so maybe I can stop here and leave what it is, a few extra slides that are telling a little bit about the structure, and then the review process itself, how the review process goes to next Thursday. So because the purpose is that we will get together next Thursday again, and then look at this. I'm giving you very, very detailed instruction. Don't use words like very. Don't use a word like quite. Why? I will explain that to you next Thursday, because It's minor thing, but it makes a significant difference. What's the reason behind? Well, I will get back to that on Thursday. So, Roman, what do you say? Is it okay if we close this time because it becomes to be 6 o'clock?
Yes, of course.
Very nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for interesting lecture. It is very useful, I suppose.
Okay, one more thing. So if you want to learn about my opinion about your manuscript, email it to me. I will browse it over and I will give you the immediate feedback. Immediately, okay, I feel that this is a good work. I feel that this is this needs improved to be in this and this perspectives. So you can use my history. You can use my knowledge in this field. So I'm in your use. You may take it or you may leave it. Up to you. So Roman, are you planning to use my service?
No, not today.
Not today.
Maybe in the future. But I will give this information for my colleagues. Maybe they want to use your service.
Sure. Now the service is valid until I'm working in St. Petersburg, and once I'm off, then I'm not going to look at that again. So this is not for the rest of my life, but this particular window.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so please use my service and think about the questions, comments, argue against my reasoning. Let's get back to this on Thursday, and then we're gonna wrap this topic about the publication business, and we will move on to computational dynamics. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Take it easy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you.
See ya.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye now.